Welcome to One World Countless Story podcast with me, Selena Novello. Welcome. I am so excited that you are here today on the Selena Novello YouTube channel. Today's episode of the podcast is an interview with Bridget Halfyard. She is so amazing and has such a bright presence. I met Bridget when I was playing hockey, actually. So if you don't know this about me, I played ringette and I pretty much skated since I was little. And then I went into ringette and then I switched. I did 1 year of hockey and ringette, which was crazy. And then I switched over into hockey and I started with boys and then I moved into girls. And that is where I met Bridget, and she was just such a light, and we were able to grow and learn together. And she had gone through a lot of health issues while we were playing hockey, and she is going to explain the challenges and struggles and what exactly those health issues were. So I am over the moon excited for you guys all to meet Bridget. She is so beautiful. Her soul is beautiful inside and out. I just love her so much and her energy, so I can't wait for you guys to hear her. So let's get into it.
All right, so my name's Bridget Halfyard. My maiden name is Bates, so Bridget Bates Halfyard. Some people know me as that. I was born and raised in and around the GTA, which is the Greater Toronto Area, in the little village of Malton, which later became part of the city of Mississauga. And I lived there all through high school. And after high school, I went to the University of Waterloo. And then I went to the University of Toronto. And then I went to Mount Royal University. I love school. We can talk about that later. I grew up in a really loving family home, 5 siblings, 3 sisters and a brother. I was the baby. They say I was spoiled, but because I have the floor here, I could say I was not spoiled. But our parents are very loving parents. They tried their best to give us, whatever we wanted. So we were all of us were in sports of different kinds all the time, different activities. Our parents really kept us busy. So one of my favorite sports is hockey, as you know. We can talk a little bit about that too, but hockey was always a big part of my life. My dad was a hockey coach. He coached my brother, and my dad played hockey. And my 2 older sisters actually played hockey. And this was way, way before any, serious Olympic women's hockey stuff. And my one sister was a really good goalie. And my other sister was like a top goal scorer. She was always in the newspaper, pictures and how many goals she scored. And so I kind of got my love for hockey from all of them.
Wow, that's awesome. So 5 kids. Wait, 5 siblings or 5 kids in total?
5 kids in total. I was number 5.
Crazy. Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about that? Because I know what it's like to have 4 siblings, but that's a whole nother other kid. So what was that like?
It was, it was good. We always had people around. So, I learned a lot from my siblings on what not to do. So how not to get in trouble. So they kind of carved a good path for me that way so that I could, kind of sidestep troubling ways and be, a little bit better, prosperous. I learned from them that way. So I thank them for paving that way for me. Mm-hmm. For the most part, we all got along. My 3 older siblings there was 3 of them in 4 years. So my parents were raising 3 little kids. And then 3 years later, my brother came along. So, finally they had their boy. So they were good. They were done. And then surprise, Bridget came along. So I was just number 5 and they just kind of went with it. And like I said, being able to look up to my brother and my sisters in the activities that they did and just their determination and their joy for different things was inspiring for me.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, what was school like for you?
School. I like school. I love learning new stuff. It's really exciting for me to just kind of indulge, and I like to read. I really like to write. I'm a better writer than a reader. But school was tough. I didn't. I was never uh, until my later years. In my younger years, I was never an A student. I always struggled. Math, science, even spelling when we were little. I always struggled with school, but I think that's what made me enjoy it more, because it became more of a challenge. So I tried harder. I, had extra tutoring. I would always try to ask questions. And so, and my mom was great at propelling me forward in school. If I got really discouraged, she would find a way to encourage me to keep moving forward and to enjoy school. So I got to be able to be part of lots of after school activities. So doing those after school activities helped me to communicate better, helped me to have better self-esteem, which helped me to be a little more successful in my academic world. And so I really liked school, as I said earlier. I did elementary school. When I finished grade 8, they didn't want to pass me into high school. They didn't think I could handle high school. And my mom just went to bat for me, and she's like, she's going to high school. And so I went to an all-girls Catholic high school with my cousin, who I also played hockey with growing up. And in this school was very focused on academics. So they really pushed me even more. And so by the time I finished high school, my grades were even better. And then I went and did my undergrad. I pushed my way in. I was like, just on the border of getting accepted or not. I got accepted to St. Jerome's College at the University of Waterloo. And I went there for my undergraduate. They didn't have any hockey there at the time. I just played recreational hockey with the boys. We're the men at that point. So that was interesting. And then I did even better in my undergrad than I did in my high school. And then I decided to go and do my master's degree, which my mom really pushed me for, because no one else in my family had gone on to do a master's in a university. And the great thing that also allowed me to be excited about doing my master's was I got to play varsity ice hockey at the University of Toronto while I was doing my master's. So it's kind of exciting to be able to do two of the things that I really love to do.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So what did you end up taking in university then?
I did my undergrad in English literature and religious studies, and then I did my master's of divinity. So I did a master's of divinity at a Catholic college, and it's basically the same degree that you would take if you were going to become a priest. So it's very pastoral, lots of ethics, lots of history of the church. And I really liked learning, and I did better again in my master's. As I got more specific in what I liked and was interested in, I seemed to get better marks in that.
Yeah, I've heard that's how it goes usually. But when you were younger, is that something that you really want? Like, what did you want to do when you were younger?
Oh, I wanted to be an NHL hockey player. That was it. I spent, if I wasn't in school or playing hockey or sports, I was outside playing road hockey all the time, every night. I remember, my mom would finally call me in for dinner, and I would run in and eat dinner, and then I'd run back out and I would play, and we would have to keep moving the net so that it was underneath the street light. And we would play until we couldn't see the ball anymore, or until my mom would yell at us to get in the house and have a bath and then get ready for bed. There's a lot of kids in my neighborhood, and we played a lot of hockey. So we would have tournaments against each other's streets. So if you lived on a certain street, you could be on their team. And so we did that a lot. Most weekends we were playing outside.
Wow. So your passion for hockey has been there from a very young age. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. So what led you to take those types of studies in university?
I've always been, two important things in my life. My two biggest passions are hockey and God. And when I can combine those two things, it's just joyful for me. Studying and doing my Master's of Divinity while playing, women's ice hockey was for me. As a young kid, we always went to church as a family until I was about 10 years old. And then my siblings were a lot older. They didn't really want to go. And so, but I still did. I still wanted to. And I kept bugging my mom to, take me to church and that. So I just kind of found my way. And some of my friends who played road hockey, if my mom couldn't go to church or didn't that week, my road hockey friends would go to church. So I would jump in the car and go to church with them and then come home and play road hockey. I also spent a lot of time at a Christian sports camp growing up. So it was Teen Ranch. It's in Orangeville or near Orangeville, Ontario. And I got to spend a lot of time there. Great camp to learn and grow as a hockey player, but also to learn and grow in my faith as well. My faith is something that's kind of been a guiding light for me to help me throughout my life in different areas.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you finished your master's degree. What happened next?
Let me backtrack a little bit, because in between my master's, I didn't finish, but I took a break because I went right through my high school, undergrad, master's. I was 2.5 years in and playing hockey, doing well, loving playing varsity hockey, getting to travel. And I injured my back quite severely about a week before our provincials, our Ontario provincial championship. And I couldn't even go to the games. I couldn't move. It was very, I don't even know. It still makes me upset. My team went on and they won gold, which was awesome. They brought a gold medal back for me, but it really hurt that I couldn't be there at that time.
Yeah.
And so it took me about a year to recover. And so part of that time I was still trying to train and work, but I had to take some time off school because I couldn't keep up with the injury and playing and doing school. So I took some time off school, and a friend of mine, crazy how it all got sorted out, but I ended up going to play hockey in Switzerland for that time off. And the Swiss league at the time,
a break though.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be taking a break. I was actually going to go visit some friends in Ireland, but then this opportunity came to go play hockey in Switzerland, and the league there wasn't as good as what I was playing. So it was kind of a good rehab for me, and an incredible experience to go there. They paid for me to go there. I stayed with one of the teammates. We ate lots of Swiss chocolate, which is incredible. Swiss chocolate's great. And I became I think I finished second in scoring that year for their team. And the following year, that team that I played for in Zug, they won the championship. So they won for all of Switzerland. And they actually sent me one of their gold medals because they had said how I had been an influence on their team and their players, and that, even though I wasn't there that year, that I was still there because of what I had shared and taught with them. So pretty meaningful. And then I got back, and my mom was like, "You're going to finish school. You started this, you got to get back here and finish it." And so I came back and went back into school. And then hockey started to get even more exciting then, because they were starting to talk about Women's Olympics. And that was pretty exciting for all of us as female hockey players. And so I went back, I finished my degree, I graduated, I played some club hockey, and I got a really bad concussion. And so I couldn't, it took me about a good year. I think I'd had some other minor concussions as well, playing at such a high level. But it took about a good year after that to really get back on my feet, intellectually even. It was a real, having a concussion can make a real impact on how you think and just how you feel in general. And so it really set me back. So I just took a job as working as a photographer. I did a lot of sports photography. As you know, our family does it. My husband loves sports photography as well. He shot some pictures of you growing up.
Yeah.
And so I did some of that. And then I thought, I did all this schooling for my Master's of Divinity. What should I do for this? And so I found a job posting for a chaplain in a high school in Ontario, in a Catholic high school. And I was like, it's like 2 hours away. I don't want to do that. I didn't really, my mom's like, just go for the interview, just for the experience.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So I apply, I get an interview, I go for the interview, I get there, and I'm in this big boardroom. And there's at least 12 people sitting in like a horseshoe style boardroom. And in the middle on one side is a glass of water. And that's where I'm supposed to sit. And then there's all these principals and directors of education. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because I thought, you go for an interview, you're going to be interviewed by one person. And there's this whole team from the Board of Education. And anyways, it was a neat interview because I had nothing to lose. I didn't want the job. I wasn't, I just went for the interview. And but as we were talking, they were asking me lots of questions, and kind of like you are today. And I was just able to just be authentic and share who I am. And at the end of the interview, they say, do you have any questions? So my question was, do you guys have a girls hockey team? And the principal just like lit up, and he was so excited. He said, yeah, we just won OFSA last year. We have a great girls hockey team. And so then that's something he and I had always talked about. By the time I drove home for 2 hours, I was home for about half an hour, and I got a phone call, and they said they wanted to hire me.
Wow.
So within 2 weeks I had moved, and I worked there as a Catholic school chaplain for 6 years.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, I have questions. I have lots of questions. So
Good.
First one, back to when you traveled to Switzerland for hockey. So what was that like, traveling, I assume, all by yourself? What was that experience like for you?
It was neat. Again, happened like really quickly. I wasn't supposed to go there. I was supposed to go somewhere else like in a few weeks, but I ended up changing my flight and going to Switzerland within 2 days.
Yeah.
And I got there, and I had stayed with a friend of a friend, because another friend of mine from Ontario had played there as well. And I just remember getting there, and the first day going to the arena, they have this big outdoor rink, which is like a skating rink, but it's almost like a size and a half of one of the rinks that you would have played on. And then you go inside to the arena, and the girls team I played for had a men's team in their men's league as well. So they were affiliated, which was kind of prestigious based on, where we played here. Nothing professional was affiliated. And in Switzerland, they love Canadians. They love Canadians, and they love Canadian hockey players. And so I was walking with a few teammates we're walking past this outdoor rink, and these kids come running up to us, and they wanted my autograph. And I was like, what? They wanted because I was Canadian, and they had heard that a Canadian was coming to play on the team, and they wanted my autographs. And so welcome there. So pretty cool, warm welcome. And then when anytime we played a game, they always had an article in the newspaper about our games, which is rare, right? You know how hard it is around here to get an article about girls hockey, but every game there was an article. It was all in German. I couldn't read any of it, but they always had my name in it. and it would always say Canadian, Bridget Bates at the time, Canadian Bridget Bates. And it would either say she scored or she had a penalty or she got no points. They just had to mention me no matter what. So I thought that was really neat and exciting for me to be there. And we traveled all over Switzerland. So we traveled as a team on a bus everywhere, all different towns. So I got to see a lot of Switzerland. That was pretty special.
That sounds so awesome. I mean, people coming up to you for autographs, like, how crazy does that feel? You were probably like, is this a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you got back. I love that. But you got back and you had a concussion, you said. So after a little bit. So what were because you're talking about these feelings and how it changes the way you think. What were those feelings that you had?
When you rattle your brain a little bit, it kind of knocks you down, and I used to get really bad headaches, and I couldn't think as sharp as I knew that I was sharper, and I knew I could think sharper, and I got tired really easy. And so I just struggled with that and felt sick, when you have a headache and you just kind of feel sick, so I struggled with all of that. And I remember it was, about a year later when I kind of, woke up in many ways, and I was like, oh, I don't feel sick anymore. And I don't have a headache. And, I was starting to really climb out of it. It took a good time to heal that. I believe I healed from that, but it really took a toll on me for that year. And so I had stopped playing, which I also takes a toll on you. This is a big pile of grief, right? You get injured. You can't do something that you really love to do. You got to try to find other things and be passionate about. So that's my hockey career kind of ended around there. And I had to look into doing different things with hockey. So I'd gone to hockey camps all growing up. So I wanted to continue working at hockey camps. There's another one called Hockey Ministries International. They actually had one in Cochrane. I think it was about a week ago. And again, it's a Christian hockey camp run by lots of guys in the NHL or former NHL guys. And so it's just a very exciting way to promote hockey in a positive way using Christian principles. Mm-hmm. And so in doing those things, I had to find a way to still love hockey. And, so I had done a little bit of coaching, a little bit of refereeing. I'm not a good referee because I get too excited in the game, and, but I love coaching. So I started to take my coaching levels and do some of that.
Awesome. So when did you come to Alberta?
So I worked at that school for about 6 years, and then I got burnt out. It was a lot of work. I got burnt out, and I ended up going back to the original hockey camp that I worked at as a kid. And I wanted to go back there and work for a year, just kind of, reset myself. And then I thought I would go back to my job. But when I was there, just found the love of hockey again. And I also found another love, which is a wonderful man that you also know, my husband, Stephen. I found him. He was a cook at the camp, and I was a hockey instructor. And so we became friends. And then a year later, we started dating, got married, started working. We had good jobs in Ontario. And then I got sick, and I couldn't work and didn't know what was wrong. I was going to lots of doctors. And in the meantime of that, financially, it's tough when only one of you is working. And so through his Stephen's brother-in-law, who lived in Cochrane, still lives in Cochrane, they kept teasing him and saying, hey, there's jobs here. You should come out here. And so it was a good financial decision for us to move out here. And the job he got paid him, a good $10 more an hour. And so that really helped us financially while I couldn't work. I saw lots of doctors. None of them knew what to do with me. They honestly kept saying I was depressed. And based on sometimes when you have concussions, depression can set in as well. I didn't believe them because I knew I wasn't depressed. I was tired all the time.
Right.
And if you know my husband, you can't live with someone like my husband and be depressed. He's just like such a joyful, fun person. And so I did spend, complied with my doctors and their authority. And I spent a year with a psychiatrist. Great teaching. Again, I love school, right? I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And in the end, he just said, no, like any depression you have would be because of having something physically wrong and not knowing what it is. And when you are sick and you don't know what it is, it can be pretty scary.
Yeah.
And so we ended up making the move out here, being sick and whatever, and thought, okay, well, if I am depressed, maybe a change of location is going to help me. And
yeah.
So I got to Cochrane. That was the year of the flood, 2013. And so we just sold whatever we could. We bought a truck and a trailer and whatever we could bring, we brought out here, moved in and stayed with Stephen's sister and brother-in-law.
Awesome.
And I got a new doctor.
Pause you. Hold on. I need to ask one question. I'm really curious. So, did your sickness start from right after the burnout from your previous job working as a school? I remember you said that. So you said that you started burning out. Do you think that could have led to some of your sickness?
I don't know for sure, but I think the sickness was there, and that was, I'm trying to work and live at a level of, of being involved and doing a lot and working really hard. I believe I'm a really hard worker, getting involved in lots of different things. And then I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up with what the standard was that I had set for myself. And started, getting tired and not really sure what was happening in my life. And so
right.
I don't know what came first. I don't know if I was sick or if I was burned out, but in knowing the what the sickness was later, I believe the sickness was starting around that time.
Okay. So when you were working in the school, did you become like really in like a big mentor there? What was your role there? I kind of skipped over that and I'm a little bit curious.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time with students, like one-on-one with students if they wanted that. My role was to create an atmosphere for people to connect with their faith, for staff and students and some community members as well to connect with their faith. And so I was in charge of creating programs, designing services like Catholic Education Week service with, we did a service once with, we had every grade 5 to 8 in all of our feeder schools. We had, I think, 7 feeder schools, all the grade 5 to 8 grade 5 to grade 8. Bust them all into our school. We had the bishop come. It was supposed to be this beautiful outdoor mass. It was in May, and it snowed in May. And so I had a secondary indoor plan. And at 6:00 that morning, I'm talking with the principal, and he's like, "What plan are we going with?" So I was like, "Well, we had to go with the indoor plan." And so I really liked to get kids involved and get them to take ownership and leadership for activities, different things. And because I always wanted to set up programs that if I wasn't there, they would still run and they would still be successful. And so open the door, give people the tools and the resources that they need in order to propel for themselves into a good learning experience. So if easy from someone getting a grade 9 student to do a reading at a service or, in front of people when they're shaking in their shoes, encourage them, get them to do that, because the next time, once you have that experience, then you're able to do it even better. And so, I never thought of myself as a mentor. That wasn't what I wanted. Like, I wasn't out to do that. I would just really wanted to watch people excel. And, I had lots of people who pushed me to excel, and lots of people in my life who wanted me to do well. And so I just wanted to pay that forward for other people. And it's so great to watch, watch people grow in their skills. Like, and that's what I love about hockey, and growing with the team, like I did when I was with you guys, seeing someone who's skating for the first time and then watching them grow and grow into, a great hockey player that just warms my heart. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. I love that. And I can see what you did at that school and what you did in your coaching as well, which I think is so amazing, because you really did want to see others succeed, which is such a beautiful gift that some people don't have. So that's really cool. So I'll let you get back into what you were saying before. So you were getting really, really sick. You didn't know why, and you got a new doctor when you came to Alberta.
Yeah, I got a new doctor in Cochrane, Alberta, when we were living there, and he agreed to. He's actually my sister-in-law's doctor, and he agreed to see me, because at the time it's tough to get a new doctor. Mm-hmm. And so he agreed to see me, and I went and did a meet and greet. Told him, I'm really struggling, and I don't know what's wrong, And he said, "Well, do you have any charts? Do you have any records or anything?" And so I brought in whatever I had from when I was in Ontario, just blood tests, different things. And he looked at things, and then he called me back, and he said, I'm going to send you to, he said, I don't think this is anything, but we're going to start and we're going to rule stuff out. He said, I'm going to stick with you until we figure this out. And that helped a lot, to know that someone trusted me, that, I wasn't faking it. I wasn't just depressed. Like, there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to stick with me to see it through. And so he looked at my reports, and there was two things that were kind of, let's check them out and rule them out. I don't think they're anything, but we'll rule them out. And one of them was my white blood platelets were a little bit lower than normal, but not so low that, it's serious right away. And then I had some issues with my spleen, and I had some issues earlier in my life, not when I was really young, but in the previous years, just with some pain and some my spleen was kind of a weird shape, and was it enlarged or not, and just all these questions. So anyways, he's like, let's just rule it out. So he got me an appointment with hematology at Tom Baker, and they're the ones that work on, analyze all your blood work. And so I went. It only took a couple months to get in to see the specialist, and it was interesting, because she had a student with her. And again, I love students, and I love to help people learn, but now I'm frustrated. Right now I'm at the point where, look, I just need some help. I don't want to be a guinea pig anymore. Mm-hmm. So she had a student come in, spoke with me for an hour, and asked me all these questions. And the student said, so then the student left, talked to the doctor, and then they both came back in, and the student said, yeah, based on everything, I don't think there's anything serious. I think maybe you are suffering with some depression, or but I don't think we can help you. So then the doctor stepped in, and this was like a miracle for me. The doctor stepped in and said, but wait a minute, there's these two tests that aren't perfect. So let's, take a deeper look. And she said, let's rule everything out. And so but in order for an oncologist to rule everything out, or like someone who deals with all your blood work, you have to do a bone marrow biopsy. Worst test ever. It's a needle that's like I don't even know how big it is. It feels this big.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's not fun. But she said, let's do this, and then we can rule out a whole bunch of stuff. So she booked me for in the next couple days. I went for the bone marrow biopsy. My husband came with me, held my hand through it all. Thankfully, he didn't pass out, which was nice because the needle was very large. And she said, after the test, she said, we're going to phone you when we get the results. And either one, my admin is going to phone you and say, we found nothing. We can't help you anymore. Like, keep moving on with your doctor. Or two, she's going to call you and she's going to book you an appointment. And that's going to mean we found something. And so a couple days later, they booked an appointment. They called me and said, we need you to come in. So Stephen and I went in the very next day, and just sat in her office, and she chit-chatted a little bit, and I'm, like, what's happening? Because you obviously found something.
Yeah.
And then that's when she said that they had found hairy cell leukemia, which is a very rare form of leukemia. It's a chronic form of leukemia. So it had been growing for many years prior to me getting to that point. And so she was kind of just looking at me like, are you okay? And I'm like, finally, I have an answer. Yeah, no, I don't want to have leukemia. Of course, this isn't great. But one, it's chronic and it's treatable. And two, we can treat what's been ailing me for, we're now at like 3 or 4 years later, right? So she said to me, there's a treatment plan, and the treatment is to have chemotherapy for 7 days, for 24/7, 24 hours a day for 7 days. And so you're going to get sick, you're going to get wiped out, and then it's going to take you a good year to kind of rebuild yourself. And so she said, I want you to start tomorrow. And this was on Tuesday. And so she wanted me to start on Wednesday, and I have to be hospitalized for about 10 days. And I was like, I can't start tomorrow. And she's like, well, why not? I'm like, because we have our final championship tournament on the weekend, and I am not missing that for anything. And I said, I've been sick for so long that I don't think, 5 more days to treatment is going to hurt me. So she was totally on board for that. And so she said, okay, what's all the timing and the games? And so the last game would have been played at this time, and then I would be admitted, like 2 hours later. So I went from the arena to the Tom Baker Center, and they admitted me and started chemotherapy that night.
So when you were going through all this process, what were you doing? Because you said you had a championship.
I was coaching your hockey team. Best years of my life was, I was sick as ever, but man, I loved getting out on it just took me away from my sickness all the time, and getting out on the ice with you guys and watching you guys play your hearts out and work so hard and learn and grow as hockey players and as a team. Like we had so much fun. You guys just taught me how to have even more fun with hockey. You guys are just so great to be around. And here I am thinking, so I'm in this new town, new province. I want to help out with the hockey team, and we had great coaches like Jake and Vance and Jeff, and just good guys to help teach you guys the game. And then I got to do all the fun stuff because I was the only girl coach, right? So I got to do the good stuff, and you guys just welcomed me so wholeheartedly. I remember one funny thing. When I first joined the team, I said to Stephen, because I always wear baseball hats, and like, Stephen, I got to go get a Calgary Flames hat. I cannot wear, coming from Toronto, I can't wear my Toronto Maple Leafs hat here, and I got to get a Flames hat. And so I go and I get this Flames hat, and I wear it in the dressing room. And I don't know if it was you, but all the players like, what are you doing? Why would you wear a Flames hat? Like, they're horrible right now. Go get your Toronto hat back. And so I just thought that was so much fun. And no, I never did. I kept that. I still wear that hat. It is oldest and wrecked hat ever, but I love it. And I love that memory about it, starting out with all of you guys. But here I was thinking that, I'm kind of helping you guys out, but I get to go out on the ice and I get to skate around. And, I didn't say too much about being sick, or I tried not to. And I just kind of wanted to do what I could. I would often be in bed all day, and then it would be practice time, and I would get one of the coaches to come pick me up. They would pick me up and bring me to the arena, and I would skate and enjoy it and love it. And then, for those like 2 hours that we were there, and then I would get a ride back home and I would be back in bed. Like, it got pretty intense before my diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, here I was like, I'm trying to give to others and do something that I love, but I got back way more than I ever gave in that time. And, so then, I get diagnosed and we have our championship. We lose the last game, which sucks. And then, but I still got to be there for it. And then I go that night and I go into treatment, and then I get a phone call the next day, early in the evening the next day. And it was your mom. She calls me and she's like, Bridget, I'm so sorry. I don't want to bug you. I know that you're struggling and it's your first day, but if I don't bring Selena to see you, she is not going to stop. And so she said, from when you got home from school until you guys got in the car, because you wanted to bring me tea, because you knew that I love drinking tea. And oh my goodness, like I still tell people about that. It was so special for me to know that here I am in this new province, and it's a couple of years in, and here I am, and there's people like you, who you were so young at the time, who had such big hearts and so caring and giving. And, anything that I had ever given in the past, when I worked at that school or in different areas where different camps, and that I was given back tenfold in what you and the other girls on the team did for me throughout that time.
Yeah, when you tell that story, I mean, I get emotional, but I also just it just makes me feel happy that you were able to be happy during this tough time, and that, hockey was able to be that outlet and to be able to be that light for you. And that even though you were new, we didn't really care, because you were so awesome and we loved you. And I know a lot of the beginning time, at least I don't remember you being sick. I don't remember that at all. I just remember all the good times. I remember when we were in the hospital and everything, but I do remember like all the goofiness and all the funness that we had. And it was just so incredible. And so I'm just so honored that I was a part of your journey in that way, and that I was able to help you that much. Because honestly, I never thought that actually really meant anything, because that's just what I did. But it's really interesting to hear now that I'm a lot older now, but it's nice to hear. It's good to hear that I was able to help you.
I think the important lesson in it all is a relationship, and building relationship at any time, because you never know what someone else is going through. Being kind to other people, just going out of your way for someone, just to have care and concern for anyone else around us. If you have care and concern for the people in your sphere that you interact with, or that you come upon in your day, how that ripple effect helps, other people. If you smile at someone, it's easy to do, right? And just being yourself, if you can work from your heart and love and care for people from your heart, like you were, and some of the other girls on the team, just it's just who they were. No one knew I was sick at first. We just all really bonded as a team, and we had a common goal to learn and to play hockey and to get better at playing hockey. And in that common goal, these other friendships and relationships developed where we're able to support each other in other ways. Lots of people on the team have gone through some pretty harsh things over the years, and just to be able to go back and support them at any time is so special. But just being in community and in communication, positive communication with people, I think is something that helps us get through when we do have these tough times.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I believe so fully that if you do a little act of kindness, and like you said, it can simply be smiling at someone, it can be asking someone how their day is, it can be so small, and it can make such a big impact because, like you said, you don't know what is going on in other people's lives, and they could have had just the absolute worst day. And then I don't know, maybe you give them a little card or something that could lighten their day and make their day. So I think it is so important to be kind and be nice and just be there and be there for the people that matter to you. So I think it's so important. But I want to get back into your story. So you just got back into the hospital, or you just got admitted into the hospital. So what happened next?
I just had to wait. I had to take chemotherapy, so I was, hooked up to a whole bunch of stuff, getting lots of drugs and sleeping pills, and they had me on a routine. I had to keep the chemotherapy happening like 24 hours a day for 7 days straight. If you were to abandon it at any time, you would have to start over, and you never want to start over from that. And so there was one night where someone at the hospital had, they miscalculated the time that the chemotherapy bag was out of the fridge before I got to it. And they didn't know the time and they couldn't figure it out. And so they couldn't give it to me. And it was approaching the time where the bag had to be changed. And the guy, I wish I knew his name, and I wish I, would have sent him a thank you card, but he came back to the hospital at like 11:45 at night, and he remixed another bag of this chemo because he was the only one that knew how to make it. It was because it was fairly rare, and so that I was able to continue the treatment. And so again, like another act of kindness from someone at that point was quite special to me. I couldn't shower. I think I had one shower that week where it was planned. So you could abandon the chemotherapy for 5 minutes. If it was more than that, you're in trouble. So the nurses get 5 minutes to switch everything over and clean the ports and all this. And so this one day we said, okay, this is my shower day, and, run under the water and come back. And it was just, the chemotherapy was that intense. But amongst all of that, I was allowed to have visitors, which was great. So I had visitors, you came in that first day, and then a bunch of other girls from the team came in with their parents. And, here I was in Alberta. I only had like three or four family members here. From my whole family was in Ontario, but then I had my hockey family. And so you guys like pitched in so well, and the other coaches. I remember Jake, the other coach, he came out to visit me, I think almost every day I was there, and he would call me, a couple hours before he was coming in, and he would say, what do you need today? What color Gatorade do you want today? And just that simple, when you don't feel good and you're thirsty all the time when you're getting chemotherapy, and for that refreshment of like physical refreshment of a drink, but also that refreshment to have people care about you, and friendships like that that have prospered even since then.
That is so special. So it sounds like you had the hockey community really a big part of your healing.
Absolutely. Oh yes. Yeah. And so I think back and reflect on that, and it's like, I loved hockey. It was my passion, and I gave so much to being a hockey player and being a hockey coach. But like I said, I received back way more than any, and just from, really shooting a little tennis ball into a hockey net all day after school when you're 10 years old, to getting to have a community of hockey people that will surround you when you're that sick. And it's just kind of incredible how a silly game, you have to put a puck into a net, right? But there's so much more to it that just has helped me become a better person because of that game. So yeah, it's not just about a game. It's about becoming someone that can give and receive, someone that can share, someone that can work as a team. So many skills that you learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's awesome. That's just so good. I'm full of all the feels right now. But so what was the process after getting all of the oh my goodness, chemo? There it is.
Yes.
So actually, before I ask that, what was it like getting the chemo? I can imagine it was probably painful, but I'd love for you to explain what that was like.
Yeah, I always laugh because the type of leukemia is called hairy cell leukemia. And they call it that because they're little blood cells in the microscope, but they look like they have hairs on them. So they call it hairy cell. But the chemotherapy that you take for hairy cell is one of very few chemotherapies where you don't lose your hair. So I thought, so that was kind of good that, I didn't have to lose my hair. So I didn't have to struggle with, that whole thing, wearing wigs or things like that. So I was thankful that way. It was kind of tough being in the hospital. It was tough for knowing that Stephen was at home and struggling with, he had to keep working, and I was in the hospital, and he did come out when, anytime he could get out to visit me. And then I had lots of other visitors come in. It's a weird type of chemotherapy. It makes you more tired than anything. So I didn't puke a lot. I didn't lose my hair, but I was wiped out. Like it was like I'm wiped out all the time because of leukemia. And then you take this treatment and it wipes you out all the time in hopes that it's going to then kill the leukemia so that then you can start feeling better. So it took a good, I'm going to say even more than 2 years for me to kind of rebuild my system and to be able to start working again and figure out where do I go from here. I had, I'm in a new province. I'm recovering from leukemia. And so then I'm like, what do I do now? So
what were the biggest lessons you learned from your time in the hospital and your time with your sickness?
One of the things is that you have to be an advocate for yourself. And it's hard to do when you're sick, but you have to advocate for yourself. You know your body and you know what's happening. You know how you feel. And, you can wait a month or 2 months to see a specialist, and you see them for 15 minutes and, you leave feeling like they didn't hear me. So how can I best advocate for myself? How can I best articulate how I'm feeling? And that was a tough lesson for me to learn, because I'm the type of person that I believe in honesty and integrity, and I would expect to if I'm going to be honest with you, I'd expect you to believe me because I'm being honest. But people don't always believe you. And I had a lot of struggles along the way with different healthcare professionals. And part of that, my own fault, not being able to advocate for myself or not knowing how to. But the big lesson is you have to. If you don't advocate for yourself, there's no one else who can or who would. The other lesson is you really learn who your friends are, and some people came back into my life when I got sick, and since then we've realized those are really important relationships I had with some friends and some family members even from when I was younger, and, you know, extended family and that you kind of grow apart from. But then when something like this happens, you know, I mentioned my cousin earlier, who I went to high school with and who I had played hockey with growing up. We were on the first team together, and my uncle coached us, and we'd kind of grown apart a little bit. We were at different universities and different things happening, and she got married and had kids, and, you know, I was still single. It was just kind of a whole different world. But when I got sick, and this tears me up, when I got sick, she was the first one on the phone. She texted me several times every single day when I was in the hospital. And so when you ask me what was it like when I was in the hospital and getting chemotherapy, it was that care from people, and especially from my cousin Andrea, that, you know, she sent me hug emojis every day, and just reconnecting that relationship that I had growing up was kind of made being sick worth it. Because when you lose something and you don't realize how much you've lost in that or in other relationships, and then you get it back, it's just so powerful and meaningful. Mm-hmm. And it's a purpose. There's a purpose in my life. You know, she's someone who's been important to me in my life, and we've been able to continue from, you know, when I was in the hospital, getting those text messages from her, to be able to become good supports for each other growing older.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think that is those are two really, really important lessons that you've learned. I'm wondering how your relationship with God was through this time.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've always had a close relationship with God, even in my struggles, and lots of, you know, when I've had struggles growing up, it's never been, well, there is no God. I've never felt that. It's always, God, why is this happening? It's always been an argument or a discussion. You know, I've always felt a strong presence of God in my life and surrounding me, and you know, my mom had a strong spiritual strength that I think I somewhat inherited or learned from her as well. And so in times when I was really sick, like especially those days in Cochrane, when, you know, I said I'm sleeping all day, I'm on the couch all day, and until I get to go and just push myself with every ounce of anything that I had to get on the ice with you guys. There were some moments where it's like, God, like, is this all you want for my life? Like, why do I have to, you know, lots of questions. Why do I have to struggle like this? And do I mean nothing to you, that, you know, you just want me to lay on the couch all day? And so struggles, but God was always present, and God was always part of it. So I felt God's presence. I didn't always, you know, wasn't always happy with God, and like, mm-hmm. Come on, you know, I've had enough now. This is enough. Figure out what's wrong with me. I need to know what's wrong with me. And
yeah.
And so my relationship with God deepened in a way, because when you have an argument with someone and you fight through it, you often become, you know, you fight through it and you resolve it, you become stronger friends, right? We got through that. We got past that. And so my relationship with God actually got stronger as I was going through my illness.
I am happy to hear that, because so many times I've heard in the past where there's a really difficult situation and people get very upset and get angry and, you know, think similar things to you, but don't make it to the end of that argument. You know, they kind of just give up, because why is this happening to me? Why are you doing this to me, kind of thing. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I always think if someone's going to have an argument with God, that's good, because it's better than them walking away. You know, when you're in an argument with someone and you want to fight it out, like, come on, we got to resolve this, we got to figure it out, is so much better than when they just walk away and then you're just feeling unresolved with, you know, all these feelings and things. And so, and you can't continue a relationship if you walk away. And so in that, if people are angry with God, even, in my work now, things when I'm dealing with people who are grieving, deeply grieving, is God part of what they're going through, or, do they not believe? So I try to gauge with them, do they no longer, or they just don't believe there's a God, or are they mad at God? And I'm so thankful if they're mad at God, because then there's that conversation that can continue. And I think in theological realms or in spiritual world, people think that their relationship with God just has to be perfect and peaceful all the time. And, if it's not going to be perfect and peaceful, then God doesn't want to be around them. And that's so far from the truth. Like, relationships with anyone are messy. Relationships with God are messy. And if you're willing to kind of surface through and walk through that mess, it's what's that saying? You can turn your mess into a message, right? And so you can move on, you can grow, you can learn, you can have a stronger relationship with God if you fight it out. And generally, if you're not going to fight it out, you're just kind of letting go, and you're kind of losing out on an experience. And so when I meet people and they're like, yeah, I'm mad at God, I don't want to talk about God, that's perfect. That's okay. Be mad at God, but fight it out and work on that relationship. And it's so refreshing to me, other than people who just say, well, there is no God. It's kind of hard to bring them to a place of connection if they just want to walk away.
Right. Well, thank you for that. That advice is very good. Yeah, I agree. I think that's so powerful. So in your story, what happened next? What were the steps? You said you started getting back on your feet 2 years after you started working. So what happened then?
I had to find, a new everything, a new career. I'm in a new place. I'd had a couple experiences when I was younger where my mom had died when I was young. And my grandmother died, and my uncle, a lot of deaths all in a short period of time. And I was really intrigued by, especially one of the funeral directors I had met when my grandmother died. And so the whole funeral services was intriguing to me. And so I was, just kind of recovering. I was kind of looking for jobs, and a part-time funeral job as an administrator came up, and it was part-time, and it was in the town I lived in. I could walk there. And it was short hours, and I'm like, oh, I should try this. And first of all, see if I'm feeling okay to do it. And so I interviewed for the job, and I got the job, and then I really liked it. And so I started, as I was enjoying my job more, and I'm healing more and getting better, I started to take on a little bit more hours and working a little bit more. And then I really liked it. So I decided to go to Mount Royal University and do my funeral director schooling. And so I was in school and working part-time. So I did that for a couple years, and I really liked, again, I love school. So I loved learning again. My husband's always like, I think you're done with school, but I can always find something else to learn.
Yeah.
So it's actually right there is my Mount Royal certificate for funeral directing. And then I had to take a provincial exam, which was not great at exams at all. I never have been. They scare me. But in order to be a licensed funeral director in the province, you have to take a licensing exam. And it's probably the hardest test I've ever taken, but I passed it. And such a sense of accomplishment after having gone through this and being so sick and, being so weak and broken physically, to be able to rise up to the challenge of taking a really tough test and passing it. Mm-hmm. And so then I got my license, and I've worked at a couple different funeral homes. I also did a training to become a funeral celebrant. So right now I work part-time as a funeral director and part-time as a funeral celebrant. And I love both of those jobs. And the funeral director, I work in Cochrane someday. And I also work for a company in Calgary as well. And so being a funeral director, getting to meet with people, just helping people in getting through their grief. I've had my own personal experiences with grief. As you know, my stepdaughter, Priscilla, Stephen's daughter, had passed away while we were also going through leukemia and treatment and hockey and all these things happening. And again, you guys were all the team players and staff and parents were such a good support for me and for Stephen at that. And so our own personal grief story has been able to help me in helping other people in their stories and in their grief as I work as a funeral director.
Let's see. I was going to ask you, so what's the difference between the two positions that you do now?
As a funeral director, your responsibility to help a family, basically the final disposition of their loved one. So are they going to have a burial or are they going to have a cremation? There's some legal documents need to happen, need to be signed, and also to talk to the family about what they want to do for their loved one. Do they want to, have a visitation, have a public viewing or visitation? Do they want to have a service? What kind of service would they want to have? So kind of all of those details, writing obituaries, that kind of stuff. But a funeral celebrant is someone who would be, in some ways it's like the pastoral role. So if somebody's they're from a Catholic church, they have a funeral, someone passes away, they're going to have a funeral, they go to the church, the pastor takes over and presides over a liturgy, right? A funeral mass. Well, some people don't belong to a church. And so what I find a lot as a funeral director is they will come in and they will say, we're not going to have any kind of service because we didn't go to church. And so that's where I find healing happens, when you can share your grief with others, where you can share about your loved one, talk about your loved one, and doing that in the form of a service. That's where I would come in as a funeral celebrant. And if you don't belong to a church or you don't have an affiliation, some people still want a religious type of service, or they don't want any religion. And so I can play that role for them and preside over a service, but I design a service that's very personal. So I will, if I'm hired by a funeral director to work with a family, to preside over, and meet with the family, spend probably, between 1 and 2 hours with them. And I ask them as many questions as I can about their loved one. And then I write the service. I love writing, again, that comes from being in school so much. And I would write a service that is like a legacy service for that person, and something that's very personal for their loved one. I really like making connections with things. So I'll ask, random odd questions like, if we're dealing with someone's mom who's passed away, what was your mom's favorite color? And so it'd be like, well, what does that matter about anything? But just a favorite color, the color purple is a beautiful color, and there's meanings behind all of these things. And, what did your mom like to collect? Just different things. And I kind of string all those connections together to share in a service, in a way to celebrate that person's life and the meaning that they had for other people during their life. And I think in my tagline on my business, I believe that everyone has a story to share. And the reason I got into the funeral celebrant stuff was I was working as a funeral director, and a man had passed away, and he came in, and he's on a stretcher there, and he's coming right in, and he's going right to be cremated. And I had seen this lots of times, but this particular one just kind of was like an arrow right in my heart. And I became so curious. I wanted to know about this man. I wanted to know his story. I wanted to know, what was special about him, whether, he had good relationships with his family or with his kids, or maybe he had bad relationships with them, but I still wanted to know. And I thought people need to know something about this man. You can't just live and, evaporate. There's got to be something that you've brought to the world that could make it a better place for us. And so I got into the role as a funeral celebrant, and it's a tough role. It's really tough it's something that I feel called to do, and that lots of my skills growing up can connect me to it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I miss what you said your tagline to your business was. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, every life is a story worth sharing.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And I've connected with so much that you've already said just this last little bit, because I've started this podcast for the reason to share people's stories and to get their stories out in the world to, remember their legacy and to see where they're coming. But I also think that there's so much value provided when people are vulnerable and they share their stories and they share what they've gone through, because it motivates me. I know that for a fact, but it also, I think a bigger thing, it just kind of brings awareness to like, you're not alone. We've been through stuff. You're not alone. And we've been through hard things, but we can also keep going and make it through. So I thank you for sharing that little tidbit, because that's really, really important to me as well. But like you said, there's probably quite a few challenges with this job. I was wondering if you could share one or a couple of them.
So when my personal and professional grief collide, that's when things can become very challenging. And so this one it was one of the first times I was working as a funeral director, and I was bringing someone into our care who had just passed away, and they were in a hospice. And so I did everything I needed to do, got them ready, got them on a stretcher, start pushing them out. The family's following me, and the nurses stopped me. And they do this ceremony where they take a beautiful quilt, and they drape it over the stretcher. And it's just so beautiful and powerful. But what had happened was, this is my professional life, but it brought me right back to, 4 years prior. And we did the same thing for my stepdaughter when she had passed away. When Priscilla passed away, we were at the hospice. We're bringing her out of the room, watching the funeral director do this, and the nurses stop, and they had put this beautiful quilt over her. And so I just was transported back to my own personal grief. And, it took everything out of me not to start crying there, because the last thing you want to do when you're a professional is, exasperate other people's grief. And so I had to kind of hold it together for that. But being able to recognize those things, and then being able to make sure that I take care of myself. And so I that I've learned because of, I'd been burned out before, and I'm not going there again. Yeah. And so there are things that I do to look after myself, and to be able to just kind of be able to understand and reflect and take the time to process my personal and my professional grief.
I would love for you to go into a little bit about your, if you're comfortable, about the deaths that happened in your life that have inspired you to take this career path. I know you talked about your mother and your stepdaughter, so I'd love if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. My grandmother, who is actually my godmother, she was the one that my mom and I were spending a lot of time with her. I was in university at the time. She had lung cancer. She was this sweet old newfie lady, curly gray hair, and she smoked all the time. But she was just so loving, and she was my godmother. So I had that special kind of bond with her. And I had the honor of being with her when she took her last breaths. I was the only one with her at the time. And I kind of felt bad because my mom had spent so much time, wanting to make sure she was there. And my mom had just gone out for dinner with my dad. We were at my grandmother's house, and she took her last breaths and passed away. And it was hard, but we knew it was coming. And so you just kind of go through the motions. And then that's when, we had to call the funeral home. They come to the house, and that was one of the first funeral directors who kind of inspired me in that role. They let me do whatever I wanted to do. I helped bring her out. I helped with a lot of stuff to do with the funeral. And then 1 year later, my mom died. And it was, so quick. My mom had suffered and had fought cancer, and she had actually been given her 10-year cancer-free, you don't have cancer anymore. And then a few months after that 10-year mark, she was full of cancer again. And so I don't know what happened or was wrong. And then within 4 months, she had died. 5 months later, her brother died. So there's 4 people in my mom's family, and 3 of them are gone within a year and a half. And then it was another year or so, and my grandfather died. And so losing my mom was tough. I was the youngest, like we said, the baby of the family. And I was really close with we were all close with our parents. I was close with my mom. I really looked up to her spiritually, and she had really mentored me a lot in my life. She was a really good example of an incredible woman. She was never afraid to share her faith with people. When she was in the hospital, and she sent me home to go and get all this. She's like, you got to go get this. She gave me this list of things, like a treasure hunt, find all these things around the house, and Ziploc bags, get a thing of Ziploc bags and bring all this stuff back. And so she made these religious care packages for all the nurses that had been there with her. So a rosary and a prayer book and all these things. And she had me running around doing all this stuff. And at the time, I'm grumpy, right? Like, come on, I'm tired and I don't want to do this, and I wanted to spend time with you. But being able, as I reflect back now, being able to do meaningful things for people when they can't do them themselves is so helpful. Like the day you brought me tea, right? Like just meaningful, small things that you can do for anyone to help them on their journey can be quite profound. And then in 2015, Priscilla passed away. She had a rare form of cancer. So I'm in the hospital for my 7 days of chemotherapy, and we got a phone call that Priscilla had been in a car accident, and she had a stepbrother, and her little stepbrother had died, and in that car accident that she was driving. And then when you're in a car accident, they always do a chest x-ray because of your seatbelt or something. And she had broke her foot and her arm, and they did a chest x-ray and said, oh, we see a spot on your lung. So you're going to have to kind of go get that checked out after the funeral for her little brother. And really, she had a big tumor in her lung, and that started her cancer journey. And so within a year from that date, she passed away. And so, I'm still trying to recover from my own grief of having leukemia. Grief isn't just always the loss of someone. Grief is, the loss of, not being able to play a sport you love and you're passionate about, and to grieve what leukemia took from me at certain times in my life. And then grieving the loss of Priscilla all on top of that. And watching my husband grieve, watching his grief, that hurt me as well. I just wanted him to feel better. I wanted to feel better. And so we had to keep things in check. We had to get some counseling, make sure that, we were walking a right path. We got a really good counselor that helped us. One of the things when you're really dealing with grief and you're married, as you know, people are different and people will grieve differently at different times, and that can take a toll on any marriage. And we right away wanted to make sure that wouldn't interfere with our marriage. And so we worked really hard to keep that stuff in check. Mm-hmm. So lots of challenges you go through, but at the end of the day, it's really all about perspective. And so how do I want to look at all of this stuff? How do I want to kind of have a bird's eye view on all this grief and things that are going on in our life? And, do I want to have a big black umbrella over it all, looking at it and saying, oh, this is all horrible. And, some of it is horrible. Or do I want to have a yellow umbrella above me that says, this is all horrible, but you can still have joy. You can still, I don't know if you've ever laughed so hard that you start crying, and then you really start crying. You're like, why am I crying? This was funny, right? Joy and grief can coexist, and they do coexist. And lots of people who are, they're grieving someone, they've lost a spouse or a child or someone, and then they feel guilty when they have a day or a moment when they laugh. But it's okay. It's okay to have those feelings, to be able to grow in your grief, and decide how you're going to carry your grief. Because you're going to have grief. My mom died almost 20 years ago, and it still hurts. Some days something really special will happen, and I will pick up my phone and I will want to call her, and I'm thinking, what's her phone number, right? Oh, she doesn't have a phone number. And that's 20 years later. You carry that grief, but you have a choice to carry that grief in a positive way, or carry that grief in a negative way. When you carry grief in a negative way, you kind of wallow in suffering, and you suffer in that. And so, yes, sometimes you're going to suffer when you have grief, but if you can pull yourself out of that suffering and, try to find ways to grieve well, do things that remind you, I do things to remind me of my mom. Or Stephen and I, one of Priscilla's favorite foods was poutine. So we will, when we're really missing her, or if it's a special anniversary, we will get on a motorcycle, because she loved motorcycle rides with her dad. We'll get on the motorcycle, we'll ride out to Canmore and go to that famous poutine place there. And, it's hard, but there's also bringing some joy into that grief.
Yeah, I think what you've said is so powerful. I haven't experienced that type of grief in my life yet. But I feel like what you have just said is going to help so many people. So I thank you for opening up and talking about all that, even though I know it might be a little bit hard, but it's really inspiring for me to hear you say that, because a lot of people, you don't hear them say that kind of thing. My question for you was, who was Priscilla to you? Because I know you'd never had any kids of your own. So I'm wondering what that relationship was like for you.
Yeah, Priscilla was a neat girl. She, I actually met her before I had met Stephen, but I was friends with her before I even was friends with Stephen. Oh. And she used to come to the camp where we were working, and Stephen would be in the kitchen and I would be finished hockey coaching, waiting for dinner, and she would be there doing her homework. And so I would help her with her homework, and we'd had beautiful conversations. And she's a teenager and struggling with life, and I got to hear her whole story of her life from her own heart, and help her with her homework, and try to do things with her, and then when Stephen and I became friends, she thought that was great because we got to hang out even more. And then when we started dating and we were going to get married, she was pretty thrilled about that. We had then had some other challenges, just some tough challenges that we went through, and then we spent some time apart. Not, there was some fractures in our relationship, and fractures in her relationship with her dad. But when she got sick, she called him again and restored that, and she pretty much on, in that 1 year and on her deathbed, she restored all of our relationships with not just me and Stephen, but with everyone in her family. And it was so beautiful to watch her do that, from the depth of her heart. Those relationships with her grandparents and her aunts and uncles and cousins were so important to her. And she was able to, unfortunately, it was because she was so sick and that she was going to die, but she still took the opportunity to restore those relationships. And so beautiful and powerful. And, she, in a few weeks before she was going into hospice, I was helping her with her. She was staying with us at Stephen's parents' house in Ontario. And I was helping her regulate her medication because she couldn't function to the point of taking it on time. So I had a schedule and a timer and all these things. And so I had done that for a couple of weeks. And then the night before we were taking her into her hospice room, I said to her, "Oh, I guess I get fired tomorrow. I'm not going to get to be your nurse anymore because I won't be taking care of your medicine." And she said, "You're not getting fired. You're getting promoted." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" She said, "You don't have to take care of me. You get to just be my stepmom." And to me, like, even now I get emotional about that. Just so powerful. And God's grace in restoring relationships with people. And in that, like, simple words, "No, you're getting promoted." Just beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I got chills when you said that. I was like, oh, that's just so beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that and just being so open and honest about everything today so far. I want to open the floor up. Is there anything else you would like to talk about? I'd love to talk about if there was some points in your life that you were your happiest or that you have some really great memories of to kind of wrap this all up.
Some of my best memories are skating, being on the ice when you're the first one out. I don't know if you've ever been like the first one out on the ice and there's no one out there and the ice is clean and you can like, there's a distinct smell and it's, probably not good for us, probably the chemicals that keep the ice together, but there's that smell and you get on the ice and you just start gliding and you can feel the air and your lungs start to feel cold. But it's just to me, that's just such a peaceful feeling. And I love that, any of those moments that I've had where I've been able to do that. It just gives me clarity when I'm in those moments, and it gives me passion that I know I'm about to start in a game or even a practice where we're going to learn, or in the competitiveness of a game that, how am I going to score in this game? What am I going to do? How am I going to work it? And so those are some great memories. My wedding day was a great memory. Nice warm day. I was a bit older when I got married, and I had done a lot of stuff and a lot of school prior to, so I was busy all the time. But we had almost all of our nieces and nephews were in our wedding party. So it was, we love kids, love to be surrounded by kids. And so we had as many of them there was like 20 people in our wedding party, and they were all nieces and nephews. And so being able to celebrate that day with family at a place where I had grown up. So it was the same camp where I had grown up, and then come back to, and then met Stephen, and then we got married in that same place.
Yeah.
And so, that was a beautiful moment. When we got engaged, I have to tell you the story. We got engaged. We were at the ranch, and we were on our way to my brother's. We were going to be going to my brother's house. And Stephen says to me, "Oh, just come down to the arena for a minute. I got to help someone with something, and then you can pick me up here, and then we'll go." Because they had a Olympic size arena on the camp at this point. They didn't when I was a camper as a kid, but now they do, and I'm working there. Yeah. And I'm irritated because I'm like, we gotta go. We're supposed to meet my brother for dinner. Got to get there. just come there. So I go there, and when I go in the door, his brother-in-law is there. And I'm like, what are you doing here? His brother-in-law's, oh, we had to pay because they had used a party room for their daughter. And oh yeah, had to pay. And then he's like, I think someone got really hurt. Like, I think you need to go out there. And because I worked there and I was at the arena, and that's why I didn't want to go in there, because I worked there. And, you get caught up in work, and we're supposed to be leaving. I'm like, where's Steven? Anyways, I go around, I go to the bench, and then someone says, so there's a bunch of, and it's a girls' hockey practice happening, and there's a bunch of people crowding around someone, like when they're flat out on the ice, they're all crowding around. Are they okay? Are they okay?
Yeah.
So they're doing this, and one of the other coaches on the bench says, can you go out there and check? And so fine. So I go out there and I start walking out, and then all the girls like start banging their sticks and they fan out, and Steven's down on one knee at center ice. Yeah. He scored on that one for sure, to propose at center ice to a hockey girl is pretty special.
Oh my goodness. I had no idea. That is the most romantic thing I've ever heard. Oh my gosh. That is so awesome.
Yeah, that's great moments. So yeah.
Yeah, those are all great memories. Oh, like for you, I'm just like amazed by that. That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming today and spending all this time with me and talking. But I have 4 last questions for you. I ask these to everyone. They don't have to be super long answers. They can be as quick as you want. So I'll start them off. So what is the best advice you've ever received, and from whom?
I would have to say the best advice is do not let anyone steal your joy. And that would be from my husband, Steven. And don't let anyone or anything. So no person or no leukemia or anything. Don't let anyone steal your joy. That's yours and you get to keep it. Don't give it to anyone.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. Next question. What is the worst advice you've received?
Oh boy. I've probably blocked it out of my memory if it was that bad. I can't think of worse.
Okay. So what advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
Be persistent. Don't give up. Just set goals for yourself, and in those goals, achieve them along the way. Set bigger goals each time, but just be persistent and again, don't let people steal your joy. Don't let anyone knock you down. Just keep moving forward. No matter what you have to go through, just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, the last question I have for you is, what are you most grateful for in your life today?
I'm most grateful for many of the people who are in my life. My husband, my friends, people who have encouraged me along the way. We have great friends. Just the community, my family, whether they're blood family or family like yourself, friends, family, friends, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
But just grateful for the relationships that have encouraged me in so many ways, and that have taught me about God, and taught me that the most important thing in life is love. It's to love each other, love others, and to be able to love yourself as well, and be someone who can respect yourself and can carry yourself in a way that others will see that respecting and caring and loving yourself is important.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much again. This was so awesome. I had so much fun. I mean, we have talked, I think, for over an hour and a half or something like that. So I could just talk to you for hours and hours, because I just love your story and how you have overcome so much. And you are this bright, beautiful person today. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and again, being so vulnerable and opening up.
You're welcome. It's my honor to be here with you, Selena. So thank you.
Oh my goodness, Bridget, that was amazing. I just have to thank you again for joining me and taking the time to be interviewed and for me to ask as many questions and go into as many deep things as we did. It means a lot to me, and I hope that you guys were able to take something away from it. Whenever I watch these kind of videos, I always have a notebook out and I'm like writing and I'm like taking a million notes. And so I hope this was beneficial for some of you guys out there, because for me, I learned a lot. And that's it for me today. So like and subscribe. We'll see you guys later and have a great day. Bye.